Friends, what's up? I'm Max. Welcome back to Spec Guy. Today I'm parked at the Colorado, Boulder County DMV. Why am I doing that? Well, I thought it'd be on brand because today I want to talk about something really interesting that in automotive media, for some reason, we don't talk about with electric vehicles. That is state incentives and rebates. Everyone, well, almost everyone, seems to bring up the federal tax credit, which if you've even been casually shopping for EVs, you're probably aware of, right? Up to $7,500 off eligible vehicles. Eligibility, both for individuals who can get it and the vehicles that actually apply for it, is very complicated. It's a whole, 9 yards. It's cool, but state rebates and incentives, I found, can actually be simpler. And if you live in a state like I do in Colorado, numbers might actually look incredibly good for getting an electric vehicle. So let me get into a few specific examples, both for my state of Colorado and a few others I've come across, because we've got a lot to go over. I think state incentives can really help make electric cars affordable for a lot more people. So let's talk about it. So first off, I love that there's another Polestar parked here at this charge point, free charge point, by the way. Another great thing done by not the state of Colorado, but Boulder County. We just have a few of these around. But I just wanted to basically talk about the state rebates because Colorado today announced a further really interesting rebate. So already, in addition to the federal tax credit, people in Colorado have been able to get, it used to be $2,000 as a flat rebate when buying a new electric car. That's gone up to $5,000. Which is awesome. Now there is of course a cap. I believe there's an income cap. I know for sure there's a vehicle price cap of up to $80,000, which I think is pretty generous. Covers a lot of EVs, some base model Rivians even in there. But today they added a new one on top of that can be stacked called the vehicle exchange for Colorado. And maybe they're not the only state to do this, but it's by far the biggest program I've heard of thus far. The idea being, let's say you have a 12-year-old or older gas car, probably has a lot of emissions, probably not the most efficient unless it's a second-gen Prius, but it probably is older, or let's say it's failed an emissions test. Either of those situations make it eligible for you trading into the state, kind of a cash for clunker situation, though theoretically they're not destroying them, they're just recycling the vehicle. They take your old car and then they give you $4,000 if you're buying a used electric car, and then I think it's $6,000 if you're buying a new electric car. And this applies, unlike the federal tax credit, to just about every electric car in the market under $50,000, new or used. Now, used, especially $50,000, that can buy you a lot of really compelling electric cars, like of course my loaded out Polestar 2. So I think that's really nice and flexible. I should mention, of course, the used EV tax credit federally is a thing now too. So you could stack that. That's only $4,000 at maximum, and that has a much stricter price cap of $25,000 on that car and on that vehicle. That basically leaves you looking at Chevy Bolts and more compliance cars from a few years ago. If you're looking at highway capable, more appealing vehicles, I really think you want to be in that $30,000 to $50,000 price zone. I wish it was better, but that's just the situation with EVs. However, I think these Colorado state rules are super generous. They really open the door for a lot of people. And there is an income requirement I've learned for the vehicle exchange credit. So that's below 80% median income. I live in Boulder, and I don't know if you know much about Boulder, Colorado, but that leaves you with a pretty, you can have a livable annual salary and still qualify for this. So I think that's awesome. Let's say, this isn't going to apply to someone buying a brand new Rivian who makes a ton of money, but someone who is driving a 12-year-old Honda Accord and wants to get like a Volkswagen ID4. This is perfect for them. Seriously, they're going to get potentially the $6,000 off that new ID4. Let's say they're buying a new one because of the rebate when they trade in their old car, probably worth more than a lot of people's older cars are worth. Then they're going to get $5,000 from the state as well, $11,000 just from the state. And then if you're eligible for the tax credit for a vehicle like ID4, $7,500, $18,500 just basically off the value of that car. I should mention the tax credit is complicated, and that's why I think these state laws are better. The federal tax credit is done through the IRS. It's next year's tax return. You have to have tax eligibility to qualify for it. I've seen several of you bring this up in the comments. It's a good point. Not everyone qualifies for that. Not everyone makes enough income. Some people make too much income and they just won't get the credit. And many vehicles don't actually meet the requirements because the US has been using the tax credit sort of as a policy measure to promote domestic EV and battery production, which is great. I support that. But the effect of that is that the vehicle has to be made in the US, assembled in the US for half of the tax credit, and the battery also has to be kind of assembled here for the other half. So the Tesla lineup, the Model 3 and the Model Y qualify. I believe the Mustang Mach-E qualifies from Ford, as does, I'm trying to think, the Volkswagen ID4, because it's in Chattanooga. There may be a few other vehicles that qualify, but there's honestly not that many. It's pretty strict. The great thing about this state rebate is basically applies to a lot of things. $50,000, like I said, is a price cap on used vehicles, buys you a lot. And even new, it's pretty generous. Now, I should mention the Colorado rebate, at least for the exchange, when you trade in your car, that's only on, man, this woman's Land Cruiser is really loud. ICE. Anyways, combustion cars, am I right? That's generous, but that's MSRP. So $50,000 MSRP, that's not protecting you from dealer markups. Dealers can charge you more and you're still gonna get the rebate. So I hope this doesn't end up canceling out and getting more money to dealers and taking money away from the state. I hope this actually achieves its purpose of resulting in more affordable cars for people, and it's not a bone to dealers. We'll actually have to see how it's implemented, but that's just Colorado. If you've been watching this video so far this long, you don't live in Colorado, thank you, thank you. There's other state incentives. I know California has long had either, I think it's $2,000 off the price of the vehicle as a rebate, or the ability to get an HOV sticker, which a lot of commuters I know who live in California, really that's a prized commodity, putting a sticker on your EV, because that lets you basically use special toll lanes if you have an EV. So that's a really cool thing for California traffic. New Jersey, I think electric vehicles are tax exempt, so our good friend Tom Maloney, state of charge, maybe that's why he buys so many electric cars. In New Jersey, they're not state tax, so that's really cool. So all kinds of incentives floating around, and there's more I'm not even thinking of. There's also power utility companies. Utility companies have rebates. So Xcel Energy in Colorado has its own rebate that sort of works with the state rebate, or if you're income qualified, can potentially expand it by a few $100s, which is sweet. It can also reduce the cost of installing a level 2 home charger in your garage, which is awesome. I've heard of similar programs in Florida from utility companies and states where they will basically subsidize or entirely pay for the cost of your home charging install. And when you get an electric vehicle and you charge at home, most of the time, man, your cost of ownership just goes way down, because while yes, DC fast charging on the road is actually getting pretty expensive these days. It's right up there with gas. Charging at home is actually pretty cheap still. So that's really sweet, especially if you live somewhere with cheaper energy prices. California on peak, that can be rough. But anyhow, it's different state by state. I'm making this video though as a PSA because I think people don't talk about these enough. I mean, the state rebates are floating around. You have Colorado doing all these cool programs, and I think it's really moving the needle in the right direction. And when you combine this with the fact that January next year, the federal tax credit will actually be, it's still gonna be the strict requirements for the vehicle, but in terms of individual eligibility, you can choose to have the dealer take the credit and then pass that on as a point of sale rebate to you. So $7,500, even if you didn't previously qualify as an individual for your income, you could get it because you pass on that tax credit to the dealer. That's going to be awesome come January next year. So you bring that along with all of these measures that are coming out in summer 2023 of Colorado, man, that's pretty sweet. I think other states are doing this too. So please, please comment below. I can't know the laws of every state. So if you live in a certain state and you're aware of specific rebates that are cool, please let me know. I should mention, just full disclosure, there are sometimes additional taxes on electric cars, and this isn't entirely unreasonable, right? Because you do typically pay a tax on gasoline, and the idea, to pay for the roads, that's a state tax situation usually. So in Texas, for instance, point of sale, there's a flat rate, I think of $300, same thing for Washington State when you buy an EV there. So just keep that in the back of your head. You may have slightly higher registration costs, and also buying a new vehicle is always going to be expensive. However, with all these rebates, it's pretty sweet. The used rebates, when they come about, are sweet too, because you can stack that with depreciation. But it seems like the meatiest of these rebates, both federal and statewide, are coming to new vehicles. So, and I think, that's fine. I'm a used car guy. I like to buy used cars. But the reality is, for lots of people who are looking for a main car to replace their aging gas car, if they want lots of highway range and modern capabilities, they're probably in the market for a newer electric car, because it's only been like 3 years since there's been, in my opinion, a lot of compelling electric vehicles from several manufacturers. I mean, 2019, 2020, that's when things really seem to start to speed up. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, though I would love to see more used rebates in the future. What do you think of all this? Is this exciting? Do you see other loopholes? Do you think this might just play into the hands of dealers? I want to hear your thoughts, but I personally am super jazzed about this news. I know my girlfriend Gosha is now really considering a few vehicles now because of this, because it's always fun to crunch some numbers, see what kind of financial situation buying different cars puts you in. I don't know, if you're the kind of nerd that she or I are, then maybe that's fun for you. I like to do that sometimes and dream. So take a look, crunch some numbers. I'll link the Colorado rules as well as, of course, the IRS website. But just here is the state rebates generally, I think, are more forgiving in terms of the vehicles they apply for, and they actually apply to more individuals because they're usually not as strict income requirements, because it's not done through the IRS, it's done through the state's agenda. So that's cool. So love stories like this. Super jazzed about this news, and can't wait to hopefully see more of these in the road. I'm expecting to see a lot of base model Polestars, ID4s, Volkswagen, why don't you bring the ID3 here? Chevy Bolts while they're still on sale. Tesla Model 3 and Model Y, of course. Some Mustang Mach-E's. There's just so many electric cars to go around now. We need more, but good to see we're going in the right direction. Anyhow, I've been Max with a Spec Guide. I'll see you next time. Bye.